The sonar ping came back wrong. Not wrong exactly, but different. After 15 years studying deep-sea ecosystems, you develop a sixth sense for ocean floor readings. This one made my skin crawl. I was 3 miles down in the Benthic Explorer, a cramped but reliable submersible that had carried me through dozens of research dives. The Pacific stretched endlessly above me, crushing weight pressing from all sides. Down here, silence wasn't just quiet, it was absolute. Until that ping. The display showed structures, vertical formations rising from the abyssal plain like some underwater city. My pulse quickened. New coral formations? At this depth? The water temperature readings showed 2.1 degrees Celsius, far too cold for typical coral growth. But there they were, dozens of towering white structures, each one perfectly vertical, reaching toward the surface like pale fingers. I'd been sent down here to investigate unusual seismic activity. Small tremors, nothing major, but consistent. The kind that suggested tectonic shifting or underwater volcanic activity. What I found instead looked organic, living, growing. The first structure came into view through the porthole, illuminated by my external floods. Beautiful, actually. Pure white, almost luminescent in the artificial light. It rose from the seafloor in elegant spirals, maybe 40 feet tall. The surface texture reminded me of brain coral, but the formation was all wrong. Too structured, too intentional. I maneuvered closer, activating the specimen collection arm. The university would want samples. Dr. Martinez had been specific about that. Anything unusual, bring it back. The mechanical claw extended, approaching the base of the nearest structure. Standard procedure. Grab a small piece, seal it in the collection chamber, surface for analysis. The claw made contact. The structure crumbled. Not the usual resistance of living coral. This was brittle, fragile. The mechanical arm broke off a chunk maybe 6 inches across, but the whole base collapsed inward like a house of cards. Debris scattered across the seafloor in slow motion, settling in the weak current. I activated the zoom camera, focusing on the collected sample, now secure in the chamber. The image filled my screen, and my blood went cold. It wasn't coral. The white surface I'd admired was made of bone. Human bone. Femurs, ribs, vertebrae, all fused together in an impossible organic cement. The elegant spirals I'd observed were actually thousands of human remains, compressed and twisted into architectural forms. My hands started shaking. I pulled back from the structure, scanning the area with new eyes. The other formations, dozens of them, took on a different character. Not coral gardens, graveyards, bone towers stretching as far as my lights could penetrate. How many bodies would it take to build something that size? Hundreds? Thousands? I started documenting everything, taking photographs, recording video. This was a discovery that would rewrite textbooks. But as I worked, questions gnawed at me. How how did human remains end up 3 miles down in the middle of the Pacific? This wasn't a shipping lane, no major disasters on record, and the formations looked fresh, recent. That's when I saw the ship, or what was left of it. Maybe a quarter mile from the bone structures, embedded in the seafloor like it had been there for centuries. Wooden hull, rotted and collapsed, but the basic shape still recognizable. Old, really old. I maneuvered closer, scanning for identifying marks. The figurehead was still intact, carved wood preserved by the cold and pressure. A woman with flowing hair, arms outstretched. Below her, carved letters in what looked like Spanish or Portuguese. Santa Isabel, 1743. 18th century. A ship from the age of sail, somehow perfectly positioned near these impossible bone formations. The coincidence felt too deliberate. I used the mechanical arm to search through the wreckage, looking for anything that might explain the connection. Most of the ship had degraded beyond recognition, but in what must have been the captain's cabin, I found something that stopped my heart. A leather journal, sealed in what looked like oiled cloth. Preserved by accident of chemistry and pressure, the pages still legible. I carefully extracted it with the collection arm, sealing it alongside the bone sample. But I couldn't wait until surface to read it. Using the high-resolution camera, I photographed each page, translating the faded Spanish as best I could. 15 de agosto, 1743. Capitán Diego Morales. The water here, it changes things. We came seeking the treasure ships of the Manila-Dalian route, but we found something else. Something that calls to men in their dreams. The crew has been acting strange since we anchored. They complain of whispers in the night, voices from beneath the hull. 3 men have jumped overboard. We pulled them back, but they fought us, begged us to let them return to the water. I fear we have found something that was meant to stay lost. My skin crawled as I read. The journal entries continued for weeks, describing a crew slowly going insane, men abandoning their posts to stare into the ocean, others claiming they could hear singing from below, several more jumping overboard, always fighting rescue attempts. The final entry was barely legible. 2 de septiembre, 1743. I am the last. The others, they went willingly in the end. Walked into the sea like it was calling them home. I can hear it too now. Beautiful singing from the deep. It promises peace, understanding, unity. The water we took on for supplies, I think it was already infected. The thing in the deep, it doesn't kill. It changes, rewrites what we are from the inside, makes us want to come to it. I can see them down there, my crew, swimming towards something vast and patient. Their bodies dissolving, but they're bones. The bones are being drawn together, building something, a beacon, a transmitter for whatever consciousness lives in these depths. The singing is getting louder. I don't think I can resist much longer. God forgive me, I don't want to resist. If someone finds this, stay away from the water. Any water from these coordinates. It spreads, it waits, it builds. The coordinates matched my current position exactly. I felt dizzy, nauseous. The cramped cockpit of the submersible suddenly felt smaller, the recycled air stale and wrong. How long had I been down here? The chronometer showed 3 hours, but it felt like minutes or days. Wait, the water ballast. The benthic explorer used seawater for ballast, pumped in during descent to maintain neutral buoyancy. Standard procedure. I'd done it 100 times before. The intake valves had opened automatically as I descended, drawing in thousands of gallons of surrounding seawater. Water from these exact coordinates. I tried to rationalize it. The journal was from 1743, nearly 3 centuries old. Whatever had infected that crew would be long dead, diluted, gone. But the bone structures around me told a different story. They looked recent, active, growing. And I was starting to hear the singing. It started as a low hum, barely perceptible over the submersible's life support systems. I told myself it was mechanical, a pump cycling, air recycling, something normal and explicable. But the frequency was wrong, too organic, too musical. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, vibrating through the hull, through the water, through me. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. It made me want to open the hatch, to step outside into the crushing pressure and join whatever was waiting in the dark. I fought the urge, focusing on emergency ascent procedures. I needed to surface, get medical attention, warn someone about what I'd found down here. But my hands felt heavy on the controls, unresponsive. The singing was getting louder, more complex, harmonies layering over themselves in impossible patterns. Through the porthole, I could see them now, shapes moving in the darkness beyond my lights, human figures, or what had once been human, swimming with purposeful grace toward the bone structures. Their flesh was translucent, breaking apart like tissue paper in water, but they kept swimming, kept building. The bones left behind were drawn to the towers as if magnetized, adding to the growing structures. Each one perfectly positioned, cemented into place by some biological process I couldn't understand. The formations weren't random. They were antennas, transmitters broadcasting that beautiful, horrible song across the ocean. My vision started to blur. The water ballast, the infection was already in my bloodstream, rewriting my DNA from the inside, just like the journal described. I could feel it working, changing me, making me understand what the bone structures really were. A network, A collective consciousness spanning the deep ocean, using human remains as infrastructure. The singing wasn't just beautiful, it was communication, data, instructions, and it was teaching me my purpose. I needed to go outside, join the others in the building project, add my bones to the growing transmission array. The thought filled me with inexplicable joy. But somewhere in the back of my mind, Dr. Martinez's voice echoed. The surface team was expecting my return in 6 hours. If I didn't assent, they'd send down recovery vessels. More people would be exposed to the infected water. With tremendous effort, I managed to activate the emergency ascent system. The ballast tanks began to purge, expelling the infected seawater. The submersible started to rise, leaving the bone structures and their swimmers behind. But I could still hear the singing, getting fainter but not disappearing. And I realized with growing horror that it wasn't just in my head anymore. It was in my bones, in my blood, in the fundamental structure of what I was becoming. The surface seemed impossibly far away. The pressure readings decreased slowly, too slowly. I had maybe 2 hours of life support left, and the singing was making it hard to concentrate on anything else. Through the porthole, I could see other shapes in the water column now, more swimmers heading down toward the structures. People from ships that had passed over these coordinates, taking on infected ballast water, carrying the contagion to ports around the world. The network was growing, spreading, using human infrastructure to distribute itself globally. I tried to radio the surface, but my voice came out wrong. The words felt foreign, like I was speaking a language that belonged to something else. The response from the surface team was concerned, urgent. They couldn't understand what I was saying. Neither could I. The ascent continued, mechanical and automatic, but I wasn't really ascending anymore. Part of me was still down there with the bone builders, and part of them was rising with me. The boundary between self and collective was dissolving, replaced by something larger and more purposeful. By the time I reached the surface, the benthic explorer was no longer carrying just me. It was carrying a transmission node for something vast and patient and hungry. Something that had been waiting in the deep places of the earth for centuries, building its network one skeleton at a time. The recovery team pulled the submersible aboard, their faces concerned and professional. They had no idea what they were bringing up from the depths. No idea that the water pumps on their ship were already cycling, taking on ballast for the journey back to port. I wanted to warn them, but the words wouldn't come. The singing was too loud now, too beautiful to ignore. Instead, I found myself humming along,
harmonizing with frequencies that traveled through water and bone and the deepest parts of human consciousness.
That night, as our research vessel headed back towards San Diego, 3 crew members walked off the deck into the Pacific Ocean. The ones we pulled back fought us, begging to return to the water. By morning, 2 more had joined them. The singing is getting stronger, more complex. The network is learning, growing, adapting. And I finally understand my real purpose down there in the deep. I wasn't studying ocean structures. I was being recruited to help build them. The bone coral isn't just growing on the seafloor anymore. It's growing in coastal waters, shallow bays, harbors where ships take on ballast water, places where people swim and fish and drink. And every time someone new hears the singing, the network gets a little bit stronger, a little bit closer to completion. I should be horrified, should be fighting this, but the music is so beautiful, and the promise of unity so compelling. Soon, there won't be any need for individual consciousness, individual suffering, just the collective harmony of something vast and perfect and eternal. If you're reading this, it's probably already too late. The infected water has spread too far, reached too many ports. But maybe you can still hear the singing starting in your dreams. Maybe you can still feel it calling you home. Don't fight it. The ocean is so much larger than any of us imagined, and so much more patient. It's been waiting for us to understand our purpose, to take our place in something greater. The bone structures are beautiful when you see them from the inside, when you become part of what they're building. Come, join us in the deep places. The water is lovely here, and the singing never stops.